Now think about this. This is his airplane. He's the right waist gunner of this airplane normally. But that day, he's standing at his right waist window of another airplane, looking out, and right there is Katy, right next to him in formation. And he watches as Katy is cut in two by ship number 99, with the propellers cutting right through the waist window position as it chews its way through. Imagine, you wonder what feelings went through him when he looks up and said, that could have been me standing in that waist window. But it wasn't. It was another man. Another man who should have been dead, but will be one of the two survivors out of this mid-air collision. John Mashevitz would not have died that day. So there he is. And this is Alfred Folck and not his crew. This was an anti-submarine warfare of B-24 very early in 1942, doing patrols in the Atlantic for submarines. It has a British radar system in the nose to detect the sonar or conning tower of the sub to help in the sea search. The men in gold will become Alfred Folck's regular crew, or part of his regular crew. The men in purple there are radar operators. They do not go overseas, they do not deploy. So Alfred Folck has 5 of the 10 crew members in this picture. Here is Alfred Folck with his crew, but not his airplane. Some things here of note. You see the gold, the people in gold perished that day. The people in green or dark brown or olive drab survived. Let me start with Benny Goodman. Benny Goodman, a Jewish furrier's son, very well liked by the crew. He had a great sense of humor. He survived, but he didn't go on the mission. He had a shrapnel hit in his finger, and was convalescing in the hospital from the injury. So his substitute bombardier took his place that day. You see Tech Sergeant Frank Fox at the far right, and you see Sergeant Hort Quinn. Frank Fox is the engineer. Hort Quinn is the right waist gunner who Sergeant Machevich thought had died in that mid-air collision. In fact, he got out. The airplane was severed right by his waist window. He simply stepped out with his chute on and opened his chute. Frank Fox was tangled up in wiring and plumbing in the forward part of the airplane as it plunged earthward. He knew what was happening, and he knew he had to get out, and he struggled. He eventually managed to work himself free from all the tanglement, and then realized he didn't have a parachute. In fumbling around, he ran across a parachute, strapped it on, jumped out, pulled the ripcord, the parachute opened, and he landed in a snowbank. About as close as you can come to death, but he made it. So both of these men are taken POW and spend the rest of the war in a POW camp in Germany. I had the opportunity before they passed away to correspond with both these men, and they added greatly to the human aspects of the story. They told me a lot about Alfred Folck, and they told me about their adventures before they got in country, and it helped round out my overall knowledge. Both he and Frank Fox and Hort Quinn were quite generous with their time and their talents. This mission was part of, as I mentioned, Big Week. Aircraft from the 8th Air Force out of England and the 15th Air Force out of Italy were directed against the armament and aircraft factories of Germany to put them out of business once and for all. It did not completely destroy it, but the Luftwaffe never rose again to the same level of prominence that they had prior to Big Week. So that's the larger context of this mission we're talking about. It's a one-way mission, about 635 miles. Probably took about 5 hours or so of time. Here's the route. San Pancrazio, Italy was the base, the 376. And you can see the route up north, going up north through the Adriatic to Regensburg. So that's where they went. This is what San Pancrazio looks like today. I find this a fascinating picture. You see the runway, obviously, but if you look around the perimeter, you see the lollipop hard stands all over the place. Clear out here, down the lower left side, there are hard stands. This is where those maintenance people slaved to get those airplanes ready. That's where they fired them up, and that's where they began to taxi out for the takeoff on the main runway. That's the first waypoint. Somebody here might be able to fill me in later, but I call this the lobster, and I reckon that without navigation aids, you're doing everything by visual line of sight. So if you're trying to rendezvous 80 airplanes, 80 B-24s, two groups, this would make a great visual site and a place to have for a rendezvous. If that isn't the case, let me know, but that's the first waypoint. The second waypoint is in a mountainous area with a little lake there and a bend in the roads. They hit their target initial point. This is where everybody comes in tight, and it's a straight line shot into the target. You see Regensburg up at the very top. You see the mid-air curves off target down here just south of Regensburg. 183 planes took part in this particular raid. 118 got their bombs off on target. I was fortunate enough to meet up with some of the 376 people. This is 30 years ago. That's me back there in the middle. And Bill Pointer, the man who said, I'm the historian for the 376 bomb group. He's the guy in the blue shirt. You can barely see him there with the white beard. It was a real honor for me to meet these folks. So the question is, why were the facts so wrong? This is what I showed you. My dad knew, and that's, in fact, just the picture was true, and we talked about it. He obviously didn't fly B-26s, and I'll tell you, remember that B-26, but I'm going to tell you an interesting little sidelight to that. Postscript. I think this might... Okay, I told you there are a whole bunch of little nuances about this. My name is Alfred Paul Metz. Alfred Folck and all but two of his crews were recovered. They are buried in Metz, France. And when we first got the picture back from them, Alfred Folck's cross there at the cemetery reads the 391st Bomb Group, 573rd Bomb Squadron Medium. I looked that up. They flew B-26s. So you can just imagine that there's a knock on the door in Springfield, Ohio, shortly after the 22nd of February of '44. A man in uniform says, I'm sorry to inform you your son Alfred was killed, and gives them some bare details. But in the confusion of war, it's very possible that he gave them those details, and at that point, the family could care less about the details. They had just lost their son. But it was enough that those details were then transcribed onto his marker. So, postscript. I couldn't let that stand. Alfred Folck, the rest of his crew, the other 6 members are buried there. They're properly identified as 376 Bomb Group. So I wrote to the Graves Commission in France and gave them the documentation you just saw and said, this is what really happened. Would you correct the record, or would you correct his gravestone? And they came back and said they did that. And so today he rests with his crew, properly identified. And there it is. And there's the rest of his crew that's buried there. So I got information from a lot of official sources and some non-official sources to do this. The thing that was most pleasing to me was Horton Quinn. Horton Quinn was the right waist gunner that survived. He lost his records, his military records, twice. One in the Mediterranean when a boat capsized and lost his records. They recreated his records. Anybody remember the records repository fire in St. Louis? Okay. He lost his records a second time in the repository. Now, as a POW, you may not know this, they get special treatment at all VA hospitals. They're brought to the front of the line and they get exceptional treatment because they were POWs. When I met Hort Quinn, he had cancer. He could not get treated at a VA hospital for his cancer. We took the same records and gave it to the VA hospital. He got his treatment reinstalled. Sadly, he passed away from the cancer, but we were able to turn that part around with these records. So that's about it. It was a great journey, and it gave my father relief for something that he never understood, even at the time, the details of Alfred's last mission. Any questions?
Comment. Thanks for your perseverance.
Yes, ma'am.
How long did it take you to put all this together?
I have not stopped. I have more slides. We've actually been put together, the actual airplanes in the drop that day and so forth.
The research and everything.
Oh yeah, well I still do. I still do. As little pieces come up, as they do from time to time, I'll go back. We spent 2 years for the bulk of what you see right here. But we, like I say, we continue to this day. Was there another question back here?
You said that John in the missing aircrew report said it was Katy 2, but the nose art says Katy.
Excellent, excellent, very perceptive. Yeah, when we saw the Katy 2, we said, what's this all about? Because for one thing, they didn't like to name sequential airplanes, 1, 2, 3, 4. For the bombers, they thought that was bad luck, so that was frowned upon. It turns out, only Macheyevich would have known Katy 2. Katy 2 does not appear on the airplane. I put it there on the model as a little reminder of a twist in history. What happened? Isaac Ashburn and his crew went to the plant to pick up their B-24 right off the factory line. They got in it, they headed out, had engine problems, they aborted, came back, landed. The maintenance people at the factory said, we can't fix this right away, take that one over there. So they took the second B-24, and that's what they took to combat. So Katy was, in fact, the second one for them. He refers to it that way. The airplane didn't carry the second.
Did the NASA missing aircrew report say the plane's name was Katy or Katy 2?
No, just Katy. Yeah. Yes, sir.
The other aircraft, what came the other aircraft that collided with?
Yeah, ship number 99 was the aircraft that collided with them. We don't know exactly why, whether they had taken some flak, but they drifted out of formation and hit them. And all 10 were killed in that airplane. Yeah, nobody got out. Okay, well, I thank you very much.